different companies. We invited for this talk talent to actually dig deeper into the how talent as a platform can help you guys, the developers, to actually analyze the data and create different APIs to ensure the quality of the data that is good enough, and so on and so forth. For that, we have actually Jason with us together with Richard, and if I'm not pronouncing it wrong, Junki. With us. I will invite Jason to the stage right now. Hey, Jason.
Hello. Let me just turn on my screen. Hello. You can see me, you can hear me, everything loud and clear.
Fantastic. How is it going? You're with
really
us all the way from UK, right?
Yes, sunny UK. So just outside,
Lucky
just west
you.
of London at the moment. Yeah.
Send some sun over here.
I wish I could, but we have such few hours and days of sunshine in the UK. I feel a bit selfish. I might actually keep here.
Totally understandable, mate. Totally understandable. And you're having two more colleagues with you, correct?
Yes. So I have two colleagues, as you say. One of my colleagues, Junki, he lives just outside Amsterdam himself. And when I was speaking about this internally, he sort of jumped at the chance. He will be joining shortly. He's just having an issue or two with login, but he will be the person who is actually going to be showing you all of the great things you can do, you can build within Talent, with sort of a real life use case, working with actual data, not sort of something from a textbook or something like that. So looking forward to that. And then I also have my colleague Richard Hall. Now he actually heads up the community at Talent. And I've asked him to join for a few reasons, really. Number one, because he has a massive background in data itself. He did computer science at university, and since then he's worked in the data industry in a number of roles. And now he heads up sort of our community side of things. So he's very much responsible for developer relations, playing with Talent, building lots of jobs in Talent. And the other reason why I invited him is because, probably the wrong place to say it, but he's actually a bit of a data nerd. So Richard is one of the people that he takes Talent and he's used it to automate his home. He finds new and interesting ways to use it in everyday world. So it's kind of that prospect of not only using data or thinking about data from almost like a professional standpoint. It's thinking about how you use data in your everyday life, and a big point of that is sort of thinking about whether or not you choose to pursue a career in data. It's critical that you will always be using data to make your decisions, no matter what field you're in, whether it's marketing or finance or human resources or anything like that. And I think Richard will bring a good perspective on that. So yeah, and again, with that, I mean, this is also an opportunity for everyone on the call to ask us questions. I mean, I have some PowerPoint slides that will show these when Richard and Junki join, but this is very much not a death by PowerPoint. I don't want anyone sort of falling asleep on the other side of their camera listening to sort of 50 slides of PowerPoint. That's not the goal at all. What I will do today is I'll show you how we've used data, or we've improved the data quality of our customers and helped them to do some good things. And then we'll jump into the demos really to see how you use the tool, and then how you can use the Talent tools that we've sort of been working together on, and to learn how to work with data and how to sort of, like you said, work with APIs, work with databases, work with cloud data warehouses, data lakes, all that sort of thing. So yeah, it's hugely interesting.
And it's really nice that we actually managed to sparkle the interest of multiple campuses from the 42 network. So we have Lisbon with us, Madrid, Heilbronn, and Ursulus. I cannot even pronounce the name of another city in Spain. So I believe that actually our students understand the importance of data. One thing that they might be missing is actually, how do you do that? right? How do you put things like analyze the data together, analyze it, and put things into perspective? Because at the end of the day, like not, I was talking to some of the students and I was saying like not all the companies actually can afford to hire data scientists, correct? So, so then who's going to be doing it? At the end, the developer will actually pull the data all together because he's the one who's actually creating like the infrastructure, the way that the data is comes out, right? And then maybe some of the business development guys would actually start to analyze it a little bit, but they don't have per se the right tools. Sometimes it's easier to put it in Python and just analyze it, rather than do Excel sheets, especially when the files are so massive. So I'm really happy, guys, that all of you are here, and you're curious about what Talent has to offer. I think one thing worth mentioning is that we are kickstarting with this masterclass the collaboration between Codam 42 Network and Talent, and you will be able to use the Talent Academy for free. We have unlimited licenses, right? So it's going to be there for you to learn whenever you feel like it and go deeper. Today is just a soft launch of actually for you to actually understand what we are talking about. Jason, is Richard on? Who will be starting from the three of you?
I will be starting. I think Richard is now on. I think we just need to make him a speaker, although he'll come into play more as we go into the Q&A. But for now, it will just be my face that everyone has to get used to.
Richard, we're inviting you to the stage. Please accept our invitation. Yes.
Amazing.
We can hear you.
Hi, I'm just trying to figure out how I can sort my camera out. So I've not used this. I've not used
platform,
this,
right?
So no.
It's just.
Sorry, I was just going to say my other colleague is having a bit of difficulty joining, but we'll get to his bits in a short while, so we can figure that out as we go along. That's the thing I love about sort of live presentations. It doesn't matter whether you've used a platform. There we go. Hello, Richard.
Figured it out finally. So it's not just data that I make mistakes with. It's video applications as well.
Oh, but there are so many events platform nowadays that if you would have to learn it all by heart, I mean, come on, it's impossible. But happy to have you here.
Oh, thank you very much.
Actually, Jason already made a brief introduction about you. So would you like to take over and just jump right in?
Okay,
yeah, sure
so
thing.
I missed the beginning, so I may be covering some stuff that Jason's already covered. Sorry, I was on Google Hangouts previously, just sort of waiting to get on. So my name is Richard Hall. I'm basically the head of Talent Community, which is our community website, forum for developers to discuss and sort of answer each other's questions and provide solutions to all sorts of sort of tricky questions that you may have with talent. I come from a background of, I can't think of how many years, but let's say over a decade of working, over a decade of working with data and application integration applications, and I've spent most of that time working with talent. Prior to that, I was involved in AI. My degree is in artificial intelligence. So now that we're moving ever more into machine learning and AI, I'm sort of right in my element. And I think Jason invited me here today to answer any more of answer some of the more technical questions, and maybe to talk about some of the fun things that I've done with talent, because I'm not for the what I call boring business examples or dry business examples. I'm more about what you can do for fun and to experiment and to find information out about yourself with your social media, with Facebook, Twitter, even using analyzing what songs you listen to on Spotify and things like that. You can do all of that with Talent, and the open source products that we provide allow you to do that without having to pay great license fees, and you can do an awful lot with those. Not quite as much as you can do with our enterprise edition, but I've set up sort of home automation. So before we had Google, Google Home and Alexa and stuff like that, I was automating my lights, heating, all sorts of bits and pieces like that using Talend and a small laptop. So the possibilities of data and application integration are endless. They're mainly used in business, but if you're a bit of a geek like I am, you can use them to do some cool stuff around the house as well. So yeah, that's my introduction to basically reveal how much of a geek I am. Or
amazing stuff.
We love geeks. We are a community full of geeks. So that's like preaching to the choir.
Oh, I'm glad I'm one of you and not on the outside edges.
Awesome stuff. So still waiting for Yuki to join in, but I mean, we can announce his presence when he joins. We'll run through we'll run through introductions anyway. So should I just jump straight into it? I can share my screen.
Yes, of course.
Now, as I said, I know this is PowerPoint. Hopefully it's not incredibly dull. There isn't a huge amount of PowerPoint. So you should be able to see my screen.
Yeah, I can see it.
All is
Amazing
well.
stuff.
You're set up. Yeah.
All is well. Always good. Always good. Right. Fantastic. And the screen is moving. Great stuff. Awesome. Always a good first step. So very slight agenda for us today. What I wanted to focus on really is almost setting the baseline. So what do we mean when we're talking about data? Run through a bit of why data is important. And then my colleague, fingers crossed, Junki, will join to run through exactly what you guys will be able to do in Talend by showing you a bit of a demo. Now this demo it's what we make of it really. So like I said, I'm open to Q&A as we go along. He can go through the demo in sort of a relative high level. So it's almost like a picture slideshow. However, at any point he can stop because what he'll be doing is he'll be bidding Talend jobs from point A to point B. So you can see how we take data in its most raw form and we sort of transform it, we clean it and we turn it into the output that we desire. And I don't really want to give away too much about the demo because I think it's quite an interesting one, quite cool. So I want that to be a bit of a surprise. So yeah, like I say, the demo can be as detailed as you guys want. So if you have questions, please just ask them. If he does something and you want to know why or how, please go ahead and ask them. And I know I appreciate this might be the first time that some of you are perhaps working in Talend or in data at all. So we can very much use this as an opening session and just let the demo run. But then what I will do after the session is I will make available data sets. And like we mentioned, we've got Academy open and available. So there's lots of use cases and demos for you guys to run through yourselves. So please feel free to go on that. And then maybe, like I said, if after a few weeks of working in the tool and completing a few sort of projects within it, you guys want to see something else or you want to see more, you want to go hugely in depth and sort of get out all the details about how we build jobs, why we build jobs, and sort of the best practice around that, that's something else we can do. So yeah, without further ado, let me jump into it. We've covered this really, introductions, familiar faces, obviously the face of Mr. Junki, who is missing in action at the moment, but we will endeavour to get him on and connected. So yeah, a bit of info around Talend. So Talend has been around for a long time now. The goal of Talend is really to change the way that organizations work with data every day. So it's about empowering organizations to make the best decisions with the data they have. Because as you'll see later, data comes from a infinite amount of sources really. And each source has its own format, its own type. Each format comes with its own errors, its own issues. And being able to clean and tidy that data to make it accessible, not only to not me, but those of us with the technical know-how and knowledge to be able to read data, but to the, I guess like me, the layman who will just see what's presented to them in front of them, say it needs to be in a format that's easily accessible and easily readable. And showing someone like me a spreadsheet isn't going to really work. So the data needs to be put into a format that is usable. And that's one of the big things we're about. So you can find out about Talent by Googling us. I won't really give you the whole company breakdown, but that's what we do. Now, what I really want to do is talk about what do we mean by data. And again, not entirely sure the sort of the level of skill and awareness of everybody on the call, but really it's just to sort of get you thinking. Like, data is in everything, it comes from everything. It's your personal data. So when you submit a form online, it's your age, can be your gender, your name, your email address, it's everything like that. It's when you're using your banking app, all of your data on there. So again, all of your personal information, but your financial information, all of your login credentials, statistical data. So your smartphone tracking you 24/7, showing that you've done 15,000 steps a day or 5,000 steps a day. Every single bit of interaction you have with the environment is data, and it's tracked in some way. Just like scientists measuring the weather, all of their sensors and their survey equipment, that all produces data. And that all has to be quantified and put into a format that is easily accessible. You don't sort of plug in a meteorological sensor to a computer and just expect an output. It has to be worked on. It's not simple. And then cultural data, you look at all the historical archives we have, that's all data in its truest form. So there is a myriad of different sources and different forms of data, and it comes from everywhere. And like I mentioned before, it's hugely important, whether or not you want to pursue a career in data itself, data science or whatever it may be. No matter the role you work in, you will have to work closely with data and base your decisions on data. So it's good to keep an eye out so you can identify what good data looks like, what bad data looks like, and you can inform your decision making accordingly. So yeah, like I mentioned, data affects decision making. So what you don't think about really is what to cook for a meal, what new product to buy, and home automation. If you think about when you're hungry, you access the memory banks of your brain and you go, you know what, I feel like a pizza, or I feel like spaghetti, or I feel like sushi. That's you making a decision based on previous data. When you look at what product to buy, you will look at YouTube videos or reviews, or you'll get inspiration from your favorite influencer on what they're using and why. And you'll look at reviews, and all of this is you yourself and your brain working with data to make informed decisions. You very rarely will just make an impulse decision or an impulse move based on nothing. Your brain acts on data, and decision making in the wider world is very much the same. It's very much similar. And like Richard alluded to earlier, home automation, that is using data from everything that you automate, whether it's your little dial on the wall that affects the heating in your home, whether it's your smart fridge telling you need to buy more bananas or margarine or butter or whatever it is, or whether it's your garage telling you that your wife has come home and the door's open now, or it's your security doorbell telling you that there's a package at the front door and allowing you to speak through it. All of that is sort of data that affects your decision making, and data that comes in that needs to be processed. And then the data that you will use, both now and later on in life in the working world, and the point at which data becomes critical, and not only data in itself, but the quality data becomes critical when you're really making a decision in your working life. When you look at the budget you have available to you for certain projects and the outcome that you need, you'll have to weigh up previous experiences. You have to weigh up the outcomes that you have and the data available to you to make those decisions. Again, like many of you now, you'll have decisions in front of you as to what courses to study, because they will affect which career paths you can pursue. You will be doing your research on that, your background. You will look at, oh, well, I would like to be a data scientist. So what are the metrics behind that? What data behind that shows that I need to know these sort of fundamental skills? I need to have this knowledge. All of that is data. even the car that you drive, your car has a multitude of sensors on it that will let you know, and also let the manufacturer know your tire wear, your mileage, your location, how you're using all of the infotainment, how you're using the air conditioning, and it ties that together, and that helps the car manufacturer build better cars or work out servicing intervals. So there's a lot of activities going on in the background that you don't even know, that is based on the data that we all generate in our day-to-day lives. And again, I mentioned the smartphone before. We've all seen the headlines of various smartphone manufacturers collecting huge amounts of data about us and what they do with that data. And again, they're using that data to, well, we hope to influence decisions that improve our lives. There may be other reasons for that data capture. But yeah, there's a huge wealth of information about data. And that's really what I wanted to sort of set the baseline. This may be old news to all of you, but it's something I wanted to bring up. So we move on from there, and we're starting to look at the reason why everyone's here, really, and that's sort of working with data, how we can impact the world around us by working with data. And this is largely, again, influenced by or even based on what everyone here wants to do moving forward. But what I will show you is a few examples of how organizations have worked with us using the talent platform to improve people's lives, because it'd be easy to show you a use case of how $1 billion organization has used talent to clean up their data and influence decision making to make even more millions of dollars. And if that's a use case that's of interest to anyone here, just let me know and I can send those through to you. But what I really wanted to show use cases where data has been used for good. So like our first case here, Save the Children. It's a global charity working heavily with emergency relief funds and getting to the places in the world where most people don't want to be. They're the ones going in the opposite direction to help out. So their goal as an organization is to create a world where all children can fulfill the potential. I think that's a pretty good goal. I'm sure everyone here will agree. So as a charity organization, they face huge issues, one of which is donor fatigue. I mean, how many people here have done a marathon or a run or an activity for charity more than once? When you do it the first time, everyone's happy to donate and sign up and give you money. But sometimes when you do it the second, third or fifth time, it's harder to get people to donate and you have to think of creative ways. And it's exactly the same for charities. Every single pandemic or issue around the world requires its own round of fundraising. So these charities like Save the Children have to come up with ingenious ways to get the public mobilized and to get the public to donate money. And also outside of fundraising, a critical factor for a charity like Save the Children is time to emergency. So the quicker that they can react to an issue in the world, the more benefit they can provide. It's less useful if it takes Save the Children or a charity a week to move all of their supplies from London to Syria or Afghanistan, for example. But if they can do that in 24 hours due to the fact that they have all the data cleaned and in the right place to enable their decision making, that's a huge benefit. That really makes a difference, quite literally. And through the work we've done with Save the Children, they've been able to work a lot faster with emergency relief delivery. They've been able to generate better donor information. So the value of that is they are able to work with their donors and send their donors more targeted fundraising communications. So it makes it more relevant to the donors that they're sending it to. So they're able to generate more money and help more people. And due to the ways in which charities work, they take in a huge amount of data from a huge amount of different sources. So being able to process all that data, and when I talk about data, it's everything from fundraising data to people's data to working with local governments when they have to prove that they're a charitable organization and the money that they're coming from the donors is going to charitable activities. There's a huge amount of compliance involved. So they have to not only take the data that's coming in with them, but process it in such a manner that they can then utilize it effectively. I'm not sure about the regulations in other countries, but in the UK, for example, we have an option when you make a donation that you can opt in for what we call gift aid, which is an extra sort of 25 pence on every pound that the charity can get. Now, when a charity submits a gift aid claim, and most charities will do this weekly or per period, for example, and they'll have every claim will be.
You gotta love technology. Come on. Say it. Okay, guys, I think this is so much easier and straightforward, right? So, Jason, do you want to take where you left again?
Yeah,
You were talking about Save the Children. So
yes, I will share my screen in 1 second.
I was talking about Save the Children and all of the great things they're doing with talent and how they're making more use of their data, better use of their data. And I've kind of lost my train of thought of what I was saying, so I'll move on to the next example. Right, this one is awesome. ICIJ, the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. So many of you will know about this, some of you may not, but this was effectively one of the world's biggest investigations into offshore banking, offshore, I guess you could use the word corruption. Basically, it was cross-border investigative journalism, the tagline being history's biggest data leak. And this was conducted by the ICIJ over a number of years, really. And it's quite interesting because you see it in the news a lot of politicians or relatively famous people being linked to organizations that perhaps they shouldn't, or being linked to, or their campaign funds being linked to offshore funds, which are then connected to other organizations who they shouldn't be linked to due to interests. I mean, we can all use our imagination here. And they actually use talent to connect the dots between all of the various data sources that they had available to them, and then applied a little bit of machine learning to really find out the root cause and identify patterns and uncover exactly what was going on. And I mean, you can see the stats here. They investigated 210,000 offshore companies. And if you think about it, that's not just the company in isolation. That's all of the thousands and thousands of documents that each company has, all of the mountainous data that all of those companies have, and some of the data, again, like I mentioned in the previous slides, personal, some of it financial. And again, working internationally, they had to deal with 21 jurisdictions. That's 21 country laws, 21 countries sort of different data protection acts, 21 different extradition orders, 21 different, probably even more than 21, but data formats, because I'm sure different countries use different methods and different systems of holding their data and working on their data. So using, I mean, those numbers there, 2.1 terabytes of data and 11.5 million documents. I mean, that is a huge amount of data that these journalists were investigating. And I think one of the important things is here is they're journalists, right? They're not data scientists. They're not people who have worked in the data industry for years and years and years, who have a wealth of knowledge. They're people that knew that they needed to get to the root cause and basically work out the recipe of what this data was telling them. So they had to work with a data organization like Talent. And again, there's something to keep at the forefront of your mind, that no matter what industry you work in or what profession you decide to go into, data is always going to be key, and it's going to be critical. And yeah, like here, you can see the outcomes of this is that they started investigations on 140 politicians from 50 countries that they linked to tax havens. Now, I'm sure a large majority of those may be completely innocent, but I'm sure a large majority of those aren't. And that's what investigative journalism is all about, finding those things. And they wouldn't have been able to uncover those patterns or connect those dots and create those links without working with that sort of 11.5 million documents and that 2.1 terabytes of data. And even since then, I mean, they published their findings on the internet, and that page itself has had 70 million page views. And again, that data of those page views provides even more insight and even more additional information, really. So what I wanted to do, these sort of two examples here, the Save the Children and the ICIJ, is really show you that it's not just about optimizing databases or taking data from one place to another, cleaning up and then moving it on. everything that you do when you work with data will have an impact somewhere. And obviously not every project is going to be as impactful as this or as impactful as it would be working with a charity, but it informs critical decisions to any business, no matter what. So being able to know that you are working with reliable data is key, because if you just work on data and you haven't done the correct checks and you haven't created the right jobs that make sure that that data is not erroneous, you're not going to be in a good spot, because businesses, even talent, we make decisions based on data every day. And those decisions can be as big as where do we hire the person to fill X, Y, Z job, or where do we allocate our budget, or what markets do we work into next. It really is the critical nature of the business, and having good data for that is key. So I'm really sort of trying to make that as a point that, and like I said again, one should always be considerate about data, no matter what role they take. And yeah, this is kind of just to sum up that point again and reiterate: you always be mindful of the data around you and the data you're using to make your decisions. Now, I appreciate Junki's just joined, and we can sort of work on some introductions for that. But without sort of moving on to that sort of the demo side of things just yet, does anybody have any questions or anything from what we've discussed so far that they would like to know a little bit more about? And again, this could be just feedback, or it could be requests.
I just noticed that Nander wrote a small message in the chat. So Nander says, I worked as a data science intern for an e-commerce startup. The company had approximately 30 employees. When I started, none of them were data scientists. Only after 2 more months, another media level data scientist was hired. This is the reality of nowadays, companies, especially startups. From what I have read, it is actually quite common for ambitious startups to underestimate what it takes to set up a strong data department. What are your thoughts on this matter? What would be your strategy in building a data team from the ground?
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly answer the first part of that. Yes, I mean, it's one of those age-old things. Most organizations underestimate the level of, or overestimate the level of skill in their team, and underestimate the sort of hiring that they need to do. And yes, data, particularly following the pandemic, it's becoming more and more prominent about how important it is. But yes, my experience is that a lot of organizations do completely underestimate the steps it takes working with data, and part of that is forming a strong department, like you say. So that is hugely apparent, and I see it a fair amount, especially in startups and small teams, because it's not what you first think about, is it? When you start up an organization, you think, right, we need sales, we need marketing, and then as you start to grow, we need dedicated finance, we need dedicated HR. You don't necessarily think that data science or a data team is one of those first sort of ports of call of what you need for an organization. But it'd be interesting to see if Junki or perhaps even Richard have any thoughts on this, because as I say, they've worked with a multitude of different companies, and particularly Junki in his role may come across organizations that don't have a data team, but they want to install talent. And then it's a case of how do they work with that? Maybe it's one of those scenarios where if you don't have a dedicated science team, then it's one of those situations where you will begin to outsource. And then as you start down that journey and you see what exactly what skills are being utilized by your outsourcing team, then you can hire those skills internally. Or maybe it's a case of when you work with a partner like Talent, you utilize our expertise and then you go from there, really. But yeah, perhaps Junki.
I can certainly share some experience. So by the way, my name is Junki. I work I work in pre-sales in the Netherlands. So I'm based in Amsterdam, and my role is to support the commercial effort. I'm part of the sales team, but I'm more or less the technical person. And I drive the technical agenda and sales processes. So I do demos, I do these kind of sessions. My job is commonly referred to as the technical conscience of the salespeople, and it certainly feels that way. So to hook back onto what the conversation about how you get up and running and where you would be starting. I think I can give 2 examples of 2 clients that we had, or 2 prospects I think they did turn into clients. One of them was VDL Netcar. And this is quite a well-known company in the Netherlands. It's very much a legacy company. They built the Minis. They built cars for BMW. So built Minis and BMWs. And if you follow the news a little bit here, then you know that there's always something going on there in terms of like factory staff being laid off because they don't get enough orders. But one thing that when we were talking to them 2 years ago was that even though they were in the middle of, a kind of a crisis where they didn't know they were going to get enough orders from the BMW, the thing that they did invest in was in their data. So the way that was driven was from the top. Somebody at the top just said, like, look, we need to become more data driven. We've invested in all these expensive machines, and they generate lots of data, but we're not harnessing any of that. And the people who put together the cars, they're important, but they're not going to be the ones that they're going to be pulling that part. So what they've done, so what they did is they started off with like a small team, with a small use case, and they were really young guys. They're like I think they're like less than 25 years old. They came from school, and so it was kind of surprising to me that they would take that approach. But what struck me was that they started with this small dedicated team, and from there on they literally just built up their data science capabilities in-house. So it was very much so what they did is that they had data. They knew they had data coming from machines, and they needed to harness it because they wanted to know when machines were breaking down. Because if a machine breaks down and it sits idle, then it's very expensive. And they started off with this use case, and from that point on, they started expanding their team. So normally it's very use case driven, but also driven from the top. I think from strategically the CDO or the CIO says like, okay, we need to become more data driven, and from there they assemble a core team and they really invest in it, even if they don't invest in other parts of the business. The other example I can give is Schiphol Group. We worked with them a couple of years ago, and it's well, at that time Schiphol wasn't was pre Corona. But they had this, this was one of the things that I invested like the most in. They hired a new chief data officer. So again, that's another theme that I've seen a lot with potential clients. They just hire a new CDO or CIO, and it's just decided on a strategic level that they are going to be more data driven, and they hire a lot of contractors, a lot of people from school. And they assemble their core teams, and they put them in all these places in the different departments. So it's not just IT anymore. Like this is not how it felt. It was more like, hey, they're everywhere, and they actually can exert their influence on how the business is being run. And that's the kind of world that we live in because of the amount of data that's there.
Did you have any experience with like bottom up generation of this interest?
Yeah. Well, actually, yes, because it's not always so obvious, right? To the more senior management, or it depends a little bit. We're also in a bit of a generational change, I think, where we see that the CIOs and the CDOs aren't the gray-haired males anymore, but they're actually quite younger as well. They tend to be the younger ones in the board level, and so they see all this opportunity that's there, and they know that there's need to hire young talent, and they need to invest in tools and capabilities, and they also know that the world keeps changing. So they become agile, and they put their trust into like a younger generation. Yeah, absolutely.
Actually, to be honest, I will open a bit the parenthesis here. We as Codam recently started looking at our events that we organize, right? The Masterclasses, CodamX, hackathons, and so on, more data-driven. So what we did, actually, we started plugging in, the different variables and trying to build the right infrastructure in order to be able to collect data for those specific variables that we want to measure. And it actually came from us, right? Like not from the management per se. The management did not per se care about like how we're doing with the events, right? But it was more like I want to see what kind of impact I create with my events, okay? And I want to be able to filter or to deliver events that are relevant to my students. I don't want to organize events for the sake of events, right? So,
Exactly. Yeah.
so this could be also like a sort of a user case of the like bottom up, let's put it this way, approach.
Yeah.
Could I just follow up on what Nanda asked, because I think that there's something important that we need to all be aware of here, and it's something that Talend are working on at the moment quite vigorously, actually. When you are in an organization, traditionally you'd have, when I first started, you'd have, as Junki said, everything would be done by IT, and then there would be a massive queue because a whole load of people, would ask IT to do some relatively trivial stuff, to be perfectly honest. Very, very simple stuff, but it would create a massive queue. And what we've been looking at Talend is the idea of personas, different personas within an organization. So if I go back to my sort of like midterm of my career, people like business analysts were able to use SQL, make simple SQL queries, but they weren't actually able to use that other than to query using a MS Query Analyzer or something like that. But what we're doing with Talend at the moment is we're producing tools which allow the different personas to actually have an impact on getting involved in that data and application or data integration. So we've got a product called Stitch, which absolutely anybody can use. You don't need to have a degree. You don't need to be a computer scientist or know how many bits are in a byte. But anybody from an admin who's just started out to the average person in a marketing team can load their data into Salesforce, Snowflake, any sort of database that you like. And then that means it spares up time for people like, without wishing to sound big-headed, me, who would be an expert on site that does the really complicated stuff with more of our data science or data integration products like Talend Studio. It frees up my time to do the stuff that I enjoy and the tricky stuff, the challenging stuff for me, and I'm not left doing hundreds and hundreds of little bits and pieces. And of course, by taking that approach as well, people learn when they're at work of an interest that they would never have learned. So when I was at university, I've always been into data. AI was my thing, so I've always been into it. But there are people I know that went to university and they were doing, physics or chemistry, biology, stuff, just science stuff, stuff like that. And they came out and they went into data because they discovered while at university that they liked working it. They were good at working with it. And now people can do that if they don't go to university, they start out in an office and they discover that they're using Stitch, for example, and they like what they're doing. They're interested in it. They want to learn a bit more. You can actually build up your knowledge with tools like Talend these days. This is what companies like Talend are doing. They're basically encouraging people to build up their expertise.
Awesome. Thank you both. I think, no matter what team you're working in, you need to start with identifying your needs, and then you build your team around that, really. I mean, like Victoria said, and from my own experience, as a marketing program manager, I have to look at the activities I run, whether they're events or campaigns or whatever it may be, and you identify which ones are performing well, why they're performing well, and then you replicate accordingly. You don't just sort of do activities for the joy of doing activities. They have to be effective. So yeah, form a team around it, really. I think is the best advice.
Do you still want to quickly address the question of Josh? I guess this will be also tackled later on by maybe Richard, So Josh is asking, how can we connect the data? I guess BlackRock with their Aladdin algorithm is pretty good about connecting all the data. Okay.
Yeah, so this is something out of my personal wheelhouse. Perhaps it will be discussed at some point in the demo, or we can cycle back to it, unless Junki or Richard are aware of the Aladdin algorithm and would like to sort of speak
I'm not.
more to it. No. Okay. I mean,
No.
again, like as with anything, really, whilst we have experience in the data space, we don't know everything. So we can certainly find the answer to that and get back to you if it's something that isn't answered in whatever we discuss coming up now.
Well,
So,
if it's I'm not familiar with the Aladdin algorithm, but when you talk about connecting to data and getting it, that's of course the underlying process for anything that you do. But I don't, maybe I don't really understand the question very well here, before I can answer it.
Yeah, I mean, I just had a quick Google because I wasn't familiar with the Aladdin algorithm, but from what I've seen, and it's been very brief, so I may have got it completely wrong. Essentially, what you're talking about is combining data sets data from different sources, different data sets, etc., and being able to actually make sense out of that data. And whereas BlackRock may have an algorithm that suits all of their use cases, that wouldn't necessarily, I believe, unless I completely misread it, deal with all the use cases that could be out there. Now, with a product like Talend or other, I'm not going to, well, no, I can be. Yeah, with a product like Talend, you can link absolutely any data set with any other data set and put it exactly where you want it. There are no limitations on what you can do with it. It does require that you understand what you're doing with it, and there'll be things like common keys between the data sets, etc. And you need to understand that. But we've got products which help you do that. So I would have to look into a bit more detail about the Aladdin algorithm and exactly what it does to be able to go into more detail. But what I would say is that what Talend can do, we'll be able to do everything that can do within Talend. A decent Talend developer, a decent team will be able to recreate that.
awesome. So hopefully that somewhat answers your question. Yeah, please keep the questions coming. I think what we'll do now is, now that we have Junki, is jump to his demo, and we can show you a bit more of the technical side of things, job building, and the output, really, what working in data will get you and the outcomes thereof. And like I said, if we're going along and you have questions, I mean, you can virtually raise your hand or put it in the chat, and then if we see them, we can get to them on the call, or otherwise we can get to them just after the demo, and then we can cycle back through everything and show everyone. But yeah, and again, Josh, like Josh has said, more than happy to have conversations that extend beyond this call. If you guys want to learn more about like sort of particular subjects or have any other questions, please let us know. So yeah, keep the questions coming.
All right. Can everybody see me screen?
We can, yeah, demo scenario.
Okay, good. So, by the way, this is our old logo. We changed it last year, but I haven't updated the slide deck. But that's okay for now. So what I'm going to show here is a typical scenario where you can actually, it's a retail scenario, right? You see a clothing store, and you want to monitor in real time what's happening in your store operation, right? You want to see a dashboard, and maybe you want to detect certain anomalies in your data. And this is a good example of where we say, how do you make data useful in real time? What do you want to do with it? What's the purpose of collecting this data, and how can you leverage it, right? To, for example, increase your sales, or to monitor store performance, and how can you position the data so you can take action on it. So this is on a technical level. We collect Salesforce data to a cloud data warehouse, and POS, point of sale data, the thing that comes from the stores, that's also being fed in your cloud data warehouse. In this case, it's a Snowflake, and that gets consolidated, and then you can do some dashboarding on it. In this demo, what I will do is I'll show a data pipeline where data is being fed from a data source. We kind of join and aggregate it, and then ingested the Snowflake. And we put that ultimately the point of sale data that's typically streaming data. So one part is batch data and one part is streaming data. Streaming data is the real-time stuff. From there on, you can do some real-time analytics on it, and you'll see that in a dashboard. We don't provide the dashboarding, but we use an open source tool called Grafana on this. Let me just go through it, and I start right here. So this is one of our data engineering tools called Pipeline Designer. And what you can do, I'll start with a fresh pipeline. You can literally just drag and drop your tooling, right? So this is not very technical, but you can add your data source. And for example, I want to do my CRM customer, so I've got a database somewhere, and that needs to go to a Snowflake data warehouse, for example. So I'll create a new data set. And it's a table, and the table name will be okay. So I can run this, and as you can see, it's a very easy to use interface, and then I can add some operations to it. If I click on my source data, I can see in real time, the structure of my data. I haven't defined any data types or any tables or anything. It just looks at the data set and it does a preview of the data, and then I can add some operators to it. For example, maybe I want to do some string manipulation on or change to lowercase, right? I want to change to lowercase, and I want to change the last name to lowercase. And I can see live what's happening to it, right? So this is my before and this is my after. And if I click on that plus, I can do many more things, right? If I've got a numeric number, if I got a numeric data type, I can do an aggregation. I can split fields. I can format phone numbers. I can calculate dates. I can do all kinds of stuff. And then that data that gets put into my Snowflake data warehouse. So this is a very simple example, right? I can also load my data into multiple data warehouses if I wish. And then I can run the pipeline, and then it runs. I won't do that. But for the example, the retail scenario, that one is fixed. So that's the. So as I said, my data is coming from my Kafka source, and then a bunch of operations appear, and so it gets data gets aggregated. For example, it gets grouped by date, by order ID, by identity. Then I want to split it, into. I have some Python scripts and some more aggregations. And ultimately, I want to have two buckets. One with some alerts to see if there's some, for example, if a credit card gets the same credit card gets used in a lot of different transactions over a short period of time, that could be an indicator of fraud, right? And so this pipeline is running, right? You see this little thing running, and if I look at this on my dashboard, what I can see, in real time shows me what's happening. So, for example, it sees 7 suspicious orders, and it gives me the order IDs. It gives me a total order volume. It doesn't average basket price, average volume, like how many items. And you can also see in real time, what are my top selling brands, what are my top selling categories. So this is where you can really see how your data can be used in a real-time manner. So this like a dashboard like this can be used by operations, and they can see, hey, something is happening. Hey, we got you can detect some fraud, and you can immediately take action on it. Now, what we're using here is on the source we use Kafka streams. I don't know if everybody's familiar with Kafka, but that's a real-time messaging broker. And so anytime a new order comes in, it gets fed into your Kafka stream, and it gets aggregated, gets sorted, it gets filtered, and then my dashboarding tool, I'm using Grafana here, but you can also use like Power BI or Tableau or whatever, and then it gets put into an Elasticsearch stack. So that is kind of like a very short demo, and gives you an idea on what talent can do, and how it can help you become more data driven.
Thank you very much, Junki.
Yeah.
There is a question again from Nander.
Yeah.
Where can I find a list of all supported tools, warehouses, etc.?
Oh, I can put that in the chat in a minute. I can find that. We've everything online with all support connectors, all supported databases. Yeah. So I can put it in the chat in a moment if you wish.
Yeah. Because I'm also curious about how many integrators you have. Like, what are the other, platforms that you are like collaborating with and trying to align, APIs with? Because I see you're already like you're using Elastic, which is really nice,
Yeah.
What other tools are you using?
Well, the thing about talent is that we are platform agnostic. We are technology agnostic, and we can. The way that we look at ourselves is we're kind of like the plumbing in your house, right? And the data is kind of representing the water. So so sometimes you need a connector for brand A, and sometimes you need a connector for brand B, and we support everything. There's also no vendor lock-in. We're not open source, but we have our origins in the open source world. We still have an open source version of Talent Studio, and so that's always been in our DNA to be able to interact with newer and older technologies. So Snowflake is something that came up in the last couple of years, for example, and so we just create a Snowflake connector, and we can literally just put it into your existing architecture. So if people want to, if companies want to upgrade from their on-premise SQL to Snowflake, they don't have to re-architect their whole thing, but they just change the connector. And if you ask me, so yeah, we do have a list of support technologies, but and we have some built-in. We have some built-in functionality, like a lot, but we also can play nicely with other tools. I saw a question about Airflow. Does it make Airflow obsolete? Well, no. We can actually, if Airflow is your flavor that you like, talent can interact with Airflow. We can coexist, right? If you have for example, if you want to do some address validation, we can coexist. We don't do address validation ourselves, but we use address services like Google Maps or Locate or something like that. If you, we do data governance, But if you have a specific data governance tool that can interact, that you really like, then we can interact with that. So yeah, we can do everything. Of course, our main proposition is, of course, to sell our entire platform. But what we also see is that if you come into existing, you always come into an existing infrastructure, and customers, they you can't take everything away from them and say, well, we're going to replace everything, and talent can coexist very well with other tools.
Can I just add to what Junki said there, because he has pretty much covered it from a business perspective, but let me just give you some examples. I've never found an input or an output source that I've not been able to work with Talend. So Talend, we provide inputs and output connectors, if you like, or components.
I think we lost you there, Richard.
Very wide variety.
Richard, yes, the internet is breaking off.
Okay. That's my fault.
Oh, you're okay.
No, I don't think so. But what I was going to say was, or what I was trying to say before I broke up was, I've not once found a source or target that I cannot connect to. Most of the time you can do it with built-in Talend components, because we provide a lot. If we don't provide one, we've got a toolkit where you can build your own components. And because, particularly with the traditional Talend products, Talend Studio being my favorite, it's basically based around Java. So if there is a third-party Java API for any tool that you can name, you can hook that in with Talend. We use web services, the lot. There isn't a single device. In fact, just to prove it, I once, to wind my girlfriend up, set up an ESP server at home and hooked it into our Samsung television, so that when I was out from my phone, I could basically switch the television off, change channels, do all sorts, just to irritate her. It was just to see whether I could do it. And I could, and it didn't take me very long at all. So it's something I think we do need to make very, very clear, that if it's not supported out of the box with Talend, with a bit of Java, you can create your own components and add it in. It's not difficult at all.
Yeah. I see a question on the chat from Anna. Yeah, how do you translate your data to Grafana dashboard? So this is something that's, Grafana is a visualization tool, and it needs to pick up the data from a database normally, or from, in this case, from Elasticsearch. So so the step between what I just showed in Talend and Grafana is really the endpoint. Let me just share my screen again. So this is, for example, an endpoint, right? And it gets stored onto an Elasticsearch on this server, right? This is the IP address of this Elasticsearch server. And now it's my Grafana dashboard. I can't edit this, but when you build this dashboard, you first connect to the server, you pick up the data that's being transferred in there live. You sort it, you filter it, you aggregate it. All these things are aggregations, and then and you put them in the right order. So it's nothing more and nothing less than just picking up data from a database. And so your data gets transformed, gets stored, and then from Grafana you configure it to pick it up in the right way. That's the answer. But that's very, that's sort of like the core of what BI is, right? When you build a BI dashboard, and for example, Tableau or in Click, you always have to make sure that you can structure the data in such a way that you can cut and dice it in the way that you want, and that really is dependent on the purpose of what you want to see. Does that answer your question?
Indeed, Anna,
Yeah.
I guess you have to just try it out.
Yeah.
And, we will provide by the end of the week, how you can get access to the Talent Academy, and you can just start playing around with it yourself.
Yeah.
And maybe we could also share the presentations. Could
Yeah,
we? Yeah, right. Okay.
So we can share Junki's demos. I'll share my presentation, and the good thing about Academy is it assumes a few things. So number one, it assumes that you can start with absolutely zero knowledge of talent and data, so you can really start from square one. So these questions you have, there will be a course or a unit on it where it will teach you the step-by-step guide about how to achieve what you're trying to do. And then there's also more advanced, shall we say, courses within it. So once you understand the principles and the foundations and the basics, then you can move on. So regardless of pretty much what you want to achieve with an academy, it will be there for you to sort of do and work on. So yeah, once you get it, you can sort of go in and play, I guess. But yeah, we'll share everything after the call. And then also at a later point, if there's a group of you or whatever that wanted to see a specific demo, or maybe a demo that has every single conceivable sort of endpoint and usage and metric and data input, then I can work with Junki and really twist his brain to try and produce something that's quite complicated to show you guys.
Yeah, and you know, the way, you know, data is such a broad topic, right? But in a previous life, I did build those dashboards. So you've got the visualization part, where, you know, where it's nice and shiny and it looks very good to end users, and you know, that's what people make decisions on. You can't really do it without the visualizations, but that's only half the story, in my opinion, because if you can have a very shiny dashboard, but if you have crap data in it, then the decisions you're going to make based on that dashboard are going to be wrong. And so what Talent provides is really that first bit, right? How you ingest it, how you make sure the data is qualified, how it's well governed, how do you ensure that the data that resides in your dashboard is trustworthy and good, fit for purpose to make good decisions on. And you know, if you're interested in the space, you know, I would just recommend those download like free trial version of like Tableau or Power BI, or one of those BI tools, and start playing around with it. You know, create an Excel sheet, find some data on Kaggle and start playing around with it. That's a very good way to get introduced into the space. And then, you know, from that point on, you can see you start to realize, hey, actually, this data is not clean at all. It comes in all these different formats. You know, I want to create a nice bar chart, but I got 5 different ways of saying Frankfurt Airport. How that needs to be fixed. Otherwise, this sheet just doesn't look very good, or isn't very useful for me. And that's where you really come into the space of what we do. And we say, hey, you know, we provide that aspect of your data journey.
Awesome. So yeah, guys, please keep the questions flowing, because as I mentioned at the start, I really wanted to make this sort of as much of an interactive sort of session as possible. And we've covered all of the PowerPoint, so hopefully no one fell asleep during that. So yeah, really, we're here to sort of answer any questions, so that when you get going with Academy and with your learning, you can sort of jump all over it, really.
I was actually wondering if any of the students were actually had ever the data scientist role in their internships or in the previous companies, organizations that you used to work for. I see Nander. So Nander, it's clearly that he already did that type of internship because he's been so active. But I was wondering if anybody else, you know, could share, you know, the troubles that they had and how they were trying to overcome it. Feel free to just unmute yourself, turn on the camera if you feel comfortable, and speak to us.
Or even if you had an interest around the sort of some of the career paths available to you, if you work in data, from consultancy to obviously data science as mentioned, or anything else. We have quite a lot of knowledge on this call, so if people have questions, we can answer them. We're happy to.
Yeah. No. I can also say something about you know, our data science proposition. What we see a lot is, for example, machine learning as machine learning being offered on like the Azure platform. You know, Databricks on Azure, and so you can do, of course, you can do your data science work in like Python or R. You know, it's all hand coding, and it works. You know, a lot of people make their living doing that. But you see companies wanting to move to those, to like platforms such as like Databricks for their analytics stuff. And actually, the same story applies, right? So dashboarding and visualization is one one use case of data, and the other one is data science. So processing large amounts of data. But again, you can feed a lot of data into a model. But if the data is of bad quality, then your model is not going to be giving you the right predictions. So what does Talent do? Well, Talent provides that that singular platform to ensure that the data that goes into those predictive models, that it's accurate and it's controlled. There's again, there are two aspects to it. There's about accuracy and quality, and there's about control, because those kind of models and notebooks, they get complicated, and you just don't want to be dependent on a person's code so much, right? You want it to be governed, you want it to be traceable, you want it to be auditable, and that's kind of the boring part of data, but it's very important. Companies like to be in control about their data, and Talent provides that. That really goes into the space of data governance, I would say.
That was actually why, we've been in talks with you guys for quite some time now, and initially we wanted to include Talent as part of the curriculum,
Okay.
because we have a major that is focused on AI, right? But I mean, how can you talk about AI if your data is crap, right? And if you don't know how to work with data, I mean, whatever you're trying to build there with your machine learning is invalid. It's not going to work, right? It's going to give you like faulty stuff. But the only thing that we were confronted with is like the time, constraint, and like all the different regressions that they were supposed to learn, and we couldn't per se fit it in. But then we said, listen, we want to offer this to all our students because we find it important for you guys to get the access to a platform where you can actually learn how to do that, right? How to operate with the data. And Jason, what are the exact steps? Because I want to send out an email to all the students, not only the people that actually participated in this masterclass, but also to all the students of Codam, and posted in a 42 network, maybe newsletter about how they can get access to Talent. Right. So can you tell a little bit about the Talent Academy and what is it, right? How much time it takes and how it would work for them, and how can they get access to it, of course?
Definitely. So there's sort of twofold to this. So Talent Academy, let's start with that. So Talent Academy is the tool that we created at Talent to basically have our customers self-service educate. So it's a way for our customers to enable their teams to learn everything there is to do about talent. So whether you've got a brand new team, like we mentioned before, who know very little about data, or working with talent, you can start at square one and you can build your skill set, and you can work with the myriad of talent products in there. And I think for our particular use case, it's not only the fact of learning how to use talent, it's learning how to work within data, right? And working towards your desired outcomes. And because we created it for our customers effectively, it's very simple to use. I mean, it's as simple as you get your login credentials, you log in and you work. And what I'll do is we'll work together, myself and Victoria, and we'll make sure that, because Academy is so vast, what we'll do is we'll, I guess, close off certain areas that we don't think will be necessarily relevant or maybe perhaps invalid, so that it is just a case of what you guys need to learn and what you need to explore. Alternatively, we can leave it as a wide open so you can explore, but because it is essentially guided learning, there are courses in there for you to sort of work through. So it's a case of you'll be given data sets, then you'll be given step-by-step guides about how to work through those to your desired outcome, like we were talking about. What your desired outcome is some visualization, or your desired outcome is pumping the cleaned up data into some machine learning algorithms, or it's into some AI or whatever it may be. You can work through those case studies so you can identify exactly what steps you need to take and how you go about those, regardless of your sources or whatever tools you need to work with, and also show you how to work with various APIs. And also the good thing about Academy is it has its own environment. So when you need to work on a particular use case, whatever that sort of environment may be, it will spin it up for you. So you don't have to worry about VM machines and all of that sort of thing. So it's very easy, basically. All we'll do is we'll set up your admins and your super users. I think most of those have already been done, but we'll make sure that's all set up, and then yeah, login credentials, and then it's like logging into Facebook or something. It's or Instagram. It's hugely easy. Now, obviously, with the University Alliance license, we have Academy. Also, we have what one of our products is real-time big data. Now, this is very much one of our tools in and of itself. It's not a learning platform, it is a fundamental talent tool. Now, this comes with the license, so it's very much a case of you can do all your learning and all your practicing and everything you want to do within Academy. And then once you feel comfortable and working within one of the tools, you can spin up the real-time big data tool, and you can actually work in it yourself. So it's very much a case of, obviously it's non-production, you can't have people sort of working on it, but you have that sort of library of access and information and of course information available to you, and then you actually have the product itself to go and work on. So you have a very nice and easy sort of warm way into working with data, and then you also have the nitty-gritty of actually creating sort of real jobs and real life scenarios, so you can go as far as you want, really, from no knowledge. So for example, I've gone in Academy and I've started a few courses myself, and it's taught me a lot. And I work in marketing. I don't pretend to be a data aficionado or a nerd like Richard or anything like that, so it makes sense to me.
Nerd?
So,
sorry,
yeah, sorry, geek. I think nerd is quite
it's
mean, isn't it?
That's socially unacceptable, Jason. Sorry,
Richard. I do apologize. Geek, yeah, sorry. So yeah, I mean, the steps are minimal. Log in once you've got your credentials, go in, work on the courses that you want to work on, complete the activities that you want to do. And I mean, at the end of it, if you get as far as sort of completing Academy, as it were, you can even apply for talent certification, which is a proper exam, and then you get a certificate and a stamp at the end of it saying you are talent certified. And that's something you can put on your CV that organizations recognize. They say, right, you can actually work in talent. And yeah, so it's a huge stamp of approval and a big thumbs up to have on someone's CV. So yeah, I saw Junki logged off, but yeah, obviously if you have any questions for him or whatever, even after the session, please forward those to Victoria and she can forward them to us, and we'll be happy to get back to you guys. But yeah, Richard, other things to say, or if other people had other questions, yeah, happy to answer anything.
I just wanted to quickly jump back to something that Victoria said a few minutes ago about AI and you delivering AI courses and how your data needs to be spot on in order to get the best out of AI, which is absolutely correct. But there's also a big part that AI plays in making sure your data is correct and in cleaning your data and cleansing your data. So there are all sorts of AI algorithms, and I love this sort of stuff. But I mean, you've got, for example, the k-means algorithm, which would be used for clustering your data. So you could identify from attributes of flowers, for example, it's a good example, different types of flowers or different genesis. But you've also got things like neural networks, which are essentially, if you think of an XY graph and then you plot a line of best fit, that's essentially what a neural network does, but on multiple n dimensions, hundreds, thousands of dimensions. And it categorizes your data from that. And what you can do with that is you can actually train it to find your bad data. And you can use Talend to find your bad data, send it off to either be corrected automatically or to humans, because at the moment, AI isn't quite as good as what we have up here. But it's not even close, but it does a really good job. And you can send that data off to your humans who are the experts in their particular area of the data to fix it and feed it back into the system. And then your data is cleaned and you've got what we like to call healthy data. I think it's very important to recognize, I think, that AI is important in creating that healthy data, but it also, your data needs to be healthy for you to get the best out of it.
Well said.
Thank you, Richard, for the contribution. Could you also discover biases when cleaning your data? Is this part of making it healthy? We have a question from a student. I think, Richard, would you like to respond to this? Because I think it's interrelated to what you just mentioned.
Yeah, it's a good question. This is actually pretty tricky because you can't just have an algorithm which you can use for everything. There isn't the sort of, I guess, mini metro is probably the inappropriate car, but the car that can do everything that you would need. You can take it on a racetrack if you wanted to, or you can use it to go to the shops. There is no algorithm that you can do that without tailoring it. So humans do need to be involved, and they do need to understand the data, understand how the data may be wrong, and understand how that data can be cleaned. So of course, if you've got incorrect biases on an incorrect understanding of the data, then a simple algorithm isn't just going to work. You have to actually understand it, and I think it's something that must be made clear, that we can provide the tools in order to get you the ability to clean your data, to use your data effectively, but you still need to have humans that understand that data to be able to use those tools correctly. I don't know whether I fully understood that question or answered it correctly, but if I didn't, if B. Summers can elaborate, then maybe I can go a bit further.
You can unmute yourself if you feel like it. But I think you're pretty clear about it. At least in my opinion, you answered it pretty smoothly. So, okay, Nander is really enthusiastic. He asks if you have any part-time jobs, because they have to do a part-time job next to their studies. So if you have any position, guys, then don't hesitate to share it with us.
Yeah,
Jason,
so
do you want to take this one, Jason? Because I'm going to post a link to our vacancies page. I'll just find it.
yeah, I was actually just going to beat you to that. So there are several answers to this question. So what I'll do is I'll look at our current availabilities at Talent itself, because obviously we have a huge R&D department, sort of at multiple places around the world. So I'll look into that. As I mentioned, and we've sort of mentioned in the call before, Talent started as an open source organization, which means we have a community of thousands and thousands and thousands of developers. And on our community site itself, we have an area where all of our talent developers, our customers, our partners, even talent itself posts job openings, whether they're full-time, part-time, whatever. And that's a great place to either show that you need a part-time position or to look for open part-time positions. So that's why I've linked there, and you can see that. Like I said, if you don't see something that's openly recruiting, register, make a post and specify exactly what you're looking for. You need a part-time position for part of your course, and what I'll do is Richard and I will see the post, and then we can reach out directly to our customers and partners as well. I know, for example, part of the reason why we're here today is our work with Mario and Progaya with Victoria. So I will also make sure to reach out to Mario, because I know he's interviewed several candidates from Codam, and he's continuing to do so because he needs more people. So I will definitely reach out to him. And likewise, if there's a few other people like that who do need positions, please send forward your details to Victoria or share them with us, so we know that, and we will do our best. We have a huge network, as I said, we have a huge network of partners, we have a huge network of customers. So even if there's not a role at Talent itself, we'll do our best to find you something.
Let's do another, like the last call for the questions, guys. Otherwise, we're going to round it off.
Well, I was going to say at the very beginning, when we were a bit concerned that Junki may not be able to log in, I quickly started working on a very, very basic example, which isn't a business example. It's actually using Spotify. So if anybody wants to see that and sort of give me a thumbs up or whatever, I'm quite happy to go through that with you, because it's something which literally, that's why I kept switching my camera off, because otherwise you'd see me sort of going while working on it. But it's something just to show that in the time that we've been in this meeting and I've been answering questions and trying to help Junki out in the background, I was able to put this together with Talent. And I think it's a fun example, but I think it just shows to show how quickly and easily you can do stuff once you understand the product. And also it shows that the question earlier, how many applications does Talent support? Spotify isn't supported out of the box by Talent. So I just thought that I could show that if people want to see it.
Anna is enthusiastic as well as I am, so go for it.
Okay, well, I will share my screen and see how this. Okay, everything's frozen for me.
We can still see and hear you.
Entire screen, right? Oh, guess what? I'm on a Mac, and it's telling me that I have to
Get out and come back, I think.
get out. I just have to give permissions. Give me 1 second. Sorry about this. I wasn't expecting this.
It's always fun, isn't it?
Yes.
But no, I mean, that's also, I mean, wanting to see more of the platform. That's a good thing about Academy. It's full of videos. It's full of sort of play-by-plays on the platform as well. So you'll never find a situation where you're asked to go into a platform and do something without a guide or pictures or a video. So seeing the platform itself as well is also hugely available on.
But the way Richard said, you know, it's like it's important to know what you're doing and what, like,
exactly.
how to use the platform.
Yeah.
Sometimes, you know, you've got this like fancy platforms with 1,000 functionalities, but if you don't know how to navigate through it, I mean, you're going to use just the most obvious parts, and that's it, you know. So,
True.
so that's why we wanted to offer the Talent Academy to you guys, for you to look into it and to learn from it. As mentioned, Richard had to leave the call, and then I think he's going to come back in a bit, right?
Yeah, that's the fun thing. You have to set your preferences outside of the call and then rejoin. I think this happened to me when we had our first call a few weeks ago, so yeah.
Hawkeye has a question over here. As mentioned before, control is important for customer, but with ML, a lot of things are a black box. Are there tools that could give insight in how certain ML algorithms came to their conclusion?
Yeah, there's an array of answers to this one. Number one, in Talent, when you are validating your data, so you've created your recipe as to how or what do you want your data to look like in a given format. Like Junki mentioned, you have a data set and it shows you that there are 15 different examples of how to write Frankfurt Airport. So Talent will clean that into one simple format of Frankfurt Airport, for example. What it can then do is you can set up effectively a notification within Talent that it will ping that to the verified human being, who will then see that that change has been made to your data set, and then they can then verify it, they can validate it to say, yes, this is correct, you've done the right thing, or no, it should be something else, right? So you have that sort of that stewardship angle of Talent as well. So that's one way in which you can see how decisions have been made within your Talent job. And with the stewardship angle, you can provide a bit more information. So you can give the reasoning why the algorithm has made that distinction or that decision. But I guess there's an array of other outputs about how you could do it. It sort of depends largely on the tools that you're using within the job. Maybe Richard may be sort of more aware of these, but that's sort of for me the initial answer to give, and the sort of the initial way it would automatically just send a notification to the right person in the right team and say, hey, we've made this change, is it valid, can we continue going with the data set and push it through to the other areas. Just checking on Richard.
I'm still missing Richard, to be honest. I hope he's still around, or the Spotify took over his entire laptop.
Yeah, it's just running around the house dancing. He's trying to log back in. So we'll see. I do know that, and again, the reason why I'm in the office today in our area, our internet service provider was doing some major works. We had internet issues. So yeah, Richard and I live relatively close, so perhaps that's affecting him. But yeah, I mean, even so, he can make a quick video of this demo if he's not unable to join. And
yeah.
Yeah. Also, I mean, like I mentioned, if you guys have particular things that once you've got to grips with Talent Academy and you've worked in it a bit, if there are particular flows that you'd like to see, please let us know, because we can create a workshop and it can be more interactive than what we've shown today. So it can be a case of it's step by step. You guys have your own data set and you work alongside us, if that's something that's of interest. There we go, Richard's back.
We cannot hear you.
You have to unmute, Richard.
Unmute.
So I have to admit, I love using a Mac, but there are some things that really irritate me about Macs. And when you're not using that for a long time, you want to share screens, you have to restart everything, which is a big pain in the backside for me. But let me share my screen.
Actually, in the entire Codam, we have only Macs, you know, everywhere, all the computers. And actually, we're planning to change into Linux soon. Yeah, so all the like 150 computers we have, or I don't know. So yeah, just because of the same issues. Yeah.
Okay, can you see my screen? You should see.
We can, yeah.
You should see Talent Studio. So this is a very, very basic job that I've put together. As I said, I did it at the beginning. In fact, it was less trouble for me to put this job together than it was for me to share my screen. So essentially what's going on here is I am using let's just open this, the Spotify API. So this is a web service that Spotify provide. Now there's all sorts of security that goes on behind this, and I won't go into the boring details, but essentially I don't need a component for it. I can just use our standard REST service component, which is able to return that data. The next component I have here is just a logging component. I put that in there so you can see the message that comes back from Spotify, which I then do some stuff with. We have here is an extract JSON fields component. So what Spotify sends back is a JSON string, essentially, and it's going to show you all of the songs, or my most recent 50 songs that I've played, which I fear may be a bit embarrassing, but I'll still go ahead with it. So what I'm doing here is I'm selecting the album name, the name of the song, and then the artists. Now, artists can be more than one. So, for example, Blazing Squad, there's about 30 of them. I don't listen to any Blazing Squad. But you may need to deal with multiple artists, which is why I'm passing this on here. We then have a TMAP component. Now, the TMAP component, oh, my screen has disappeared. Let me just bring that back up again. Sorry about this. I'm having trouble with my Mac today, and I think that I have got too many things open, but it won't take me too long to get back to where we were. So what I was going to say was the TMAP component is used to map different fields. So, for example, I'm bringing back, in that example, the name of the album, the name of the song, and the artists that are coming through. Now, the artists are being passed back as a sub JSON string because there are potentially multiples of them. So what I'm doing there is I'm passing that whole thing on to the next component, which is a T extract JSON fields component, which I then use to extract the different artists from that string. I'm also adding a bit of a number in there, because when you see the records that come back, you'll notice that some songs have one artist, like, for example, Michael Jackson, it's just the one artist. Whereas if it's, and I'm going to embarrass myself here, but I listened to a bit of musical theatre. I actually nearly became an actor and then decided, no, computer science is far more exciting. So in a musical theatre song, for example, they may have multiple artists. So I need to deal with that and cater for that. And so what I've done is I've added a field to put the number of the songs so that we can see that that's still the same song, it's just got multiple artists. So when my studio opens up again, and this is entirely my fault, I have far too many applications open. If I showed you my my tabs on my Chrome, as Jason has seen multiple times, you'd probably think, how the hell does his Mac carry on working? But we're just loading up my studio at the moment. And now my studio is taking a while to open because I've got everything hooked into GitHub, and because I'm using a lot of bandwidth at the moment, the data is coming through quite slowly and it updates on every load. So there are pros and cons to that. If you've got a big project, as I do, I'll show you the size of my project. It's got hundreds of jobs in there. It does mean that when you're loading up and you've got a minimal bandwidth like I've got at the moment, it can take a little bit of time to actually load up. And I'm just now looking around my screen because I'm showing my whole screen and wondering if I got anything dubious that you shouldn't be seeing. Jason, can you give me a heads up? Am I okay? Am I not revealing anything that's too embarrassing at the moment?
Not hugely. I just keep seeing myself reflected, so it's not too pleasant. But apart from
Oh, okay. Well, that does seem somewhat inappropriate to show you. So as I was saying, I have quite a big project here. All of these folders here have got loads of subfolders, all with hundreds of jobs in. I won't spend ages doing that because my machine is on its last legs and I don't want to have to reload again. So let's just find my Spotify job that I quickly knocked up. Here we go, Spotify. Quick test. The other two jobs you'll see in there is where I generated an access token and a refresh token because I'm using authentication. I've just I copied those from a Google Photos job that I was also working on previously and just modified it so I could get the access token that I needed. And hopefully, fingers crossed, the access token will still be valid because access tokens tend to expire. So we may need to generate another one, but hopefully I will not need to. Let's just dismiss that meeting. Okay. So Jason, in our next meeting, just to let you know, I may need to completely shut down my machine because it is on its last legs. All right, so we're back to where we were. So before all of that, I won't open the TMAP because I've already explained that, but the tExtract.json component, we can see there, what I'm doing is I'm passing the song number, which I generated in this component, the album and the song, which was generated here. They're blank there because what that suggests is there's nothing to do here, so just pass the value that's been fed through from the previous component. And then we've got the artist. And the artist is extracted from the JSON that's been provided by the artists field that I passed through or extracted here. So what I'll do is I'll run through it and then I can show you the JSON so you can understand where the data is coming from and how it's been output at the end. So fingers crossed that my authentication code still works. It's just compiling the job now because all of the stuff in Studio is essentially a Java application, which means that you can actually use the Talend jobs if you wanted to in another Java application. So there, I mean, that's not how we normally work with Talend, but you can do that sort of stuff as well, which is remarkably useful in different scenarios. So it's compiled and it is running, and here we go. So if I just show you the output and what we've got here. So it's just, right. So first of all, okay, I'm listening to a lot of Hamilton at the moment. I'm not going to apologize. It's a great musical. Jekyll and Hyde, Major to Minor. It's predominantly Hamilton though, as you can see. So we've got the song number here. So it's 1 all the way down to here. That's because in this song, which happens to be my favorite, a song called My Shot, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 artists involved. So you've got Lin-Manuel Miranda, who wrote Hamilton, Anthony Ramos, David Diggs, etc., etc., etc. Now, this may not seem like the most exciting examples, but there's so much more that you can do with Talend. And I did this in literally 10, 15 minutes while trying to help out Junki. We're using 6 components, and to be perfectly honest, we only really needed, let's say, 4 of those. I didn't need to include this one. But the reason why I included that one is because it shows you the data that we get from the API. So you'll see that this is a massive, massive, massive JSON string. It's holding 50 of the most recent songs that I've played. And you can see how massive and how unwielding that is to actually read. If you had to go through and search for this, it would be a complete nightmare. But what I've done with the tExtract.json's JSON components is I've extracted the particular fields. So if we look here, the top field is items. It's an array, and it goes down to albums. So from that, I'm picking up, where is it? The album. I can't even find it here. It's so difficult to find. And this is why it's actually quite useful to be able to extract data from the JSON. But where is it? There it is. So Hamilton, the original Broadway cast recording. Now, I can also go through and look through the artists in there, and you can see that we've got this artists sort of JSON array, and there's quite a few in there. I won't go through and sort of go into any great detail as to all of this information, but you can see that this information here, I only wanted to know the name, the song, the album, and the artists that were actually involved. And for me to go through that and actually pick it out by looking at this and dealing with it by hand, it would take absolutely ages. In fact, it would probably take me about as long as it took me to actually build this job. Now, I'm not going to suggest that within 5 minutes of doing the Academic Alliance courses, you'll be able to do stuff like this, because there's a lot of behind the scenes information that I've got. I know how to use web services. I know about authentication. That's stuff that you learn when you need to do it. But when you know how to do these sorts of bits and pieces, setting up a job like this to get data for somebody takes literally, as I said, 15 minutes for me to do this. And when you give that data to over to somebody from this format to, let's just go back to the very one, this is a massive file, to this format, they look at that as if it's magic. They're like, how the hell did you do that? And you can be doing that, and it won't take you very long at all. I'm just going to stop sharing now, because I think my machine may blow up very soon.
Thank you, Richard.
Really cool stuff. Really cool stuff. So you see, guys, what you can actually achieve with talent. So it's really worthwhile to take a look at the Talent Academy and try to get a little bit of knowledge before you actually jump and start playing with the platform per se.
So, sorry to interrupt, but it's also, as well as Talent Academy, because Talent Academy will, sorry, I said the Academic Alliance previously, I got confused, but Talent Academy is great for learning the very basics of talent. But if you want to start doing stuff like I've demonstrated there, if you go to community.talent.com, people will have done that before, and people ask questions as to how to do that using the Talent tools. And you don't learn that stuff necessarily by doing the Talent courses, but you can get that stuff from other people in Talent community. So they work together very, very well. Once you learn the Talent product, you then think, well, how can I do something with that API that I've never used before, or that API that I've never used before? And other people in Talent community will have done that. And if they haven't, it's the sort of thing where I'm like, challenge, I can listen. So feel free to send any challenges so that me and my team can have a look at them and either say, yeah, somebody else has done that, I point them to that solution, or great, a project to work on.
That's why I love the developers community. You know, you're always up for a challenge, and then you just spend like hours during the night, you know, building something for somebody else, whichever. In the business community, this does not happen, okay? So we know that, Jason, right?
We certainly do. We certainly do.
Ladies and gents, I would like to round off this session. I would like to thank very much Jason, Richard, and Junki for sharing the knowledge, for being so open for collaboration, and to actually contribute to the development of our students, you know, in data science this time around. We will follow up together with Jason related to what would be the next steps in terms of you going to the Talent Academy, and how do we deal with these licenses, the free licenses. I guess give us like a couple of days to write the email and get back to you. So far, gents, thank you so much for taking the time. And I hope that we can do another session somewhere maybe in December or January to follow up, right? So I will try to collect some questions from the students, or like, you know, the topics the students would be interested in when it comes to talent, because I hope that before that point, you know, they already navigated a little bit through the Talent Academy, and they gathered a couple of topics that we could discuss, and we can follow up with another session soon.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, look forward to seeing you guys soon.
Thanks a bunch, all. Yes, we keep in touch.
Everyone. Ciao.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Bye.